Silver Pine, Oregon. Population, just under 12,000. A quiet, pine-covered town tucked between rolling hills and the misty rivers of the Pacific Northwest. The kind of place where life felt safe, predictable, almost scripted. Children rode their bikes after dark, and shopkeepers still knew their customers by name. Nothing truly bad ever happened here, that's what people used to say. Before Melissa Harding disappeared, she had been the English teacher at Silver Pine High School for nearly 12 years. A familiar face to hundreds of students, a comforting presence to colleagues, and a source of pride for the community. She wasn't married, had no children, and lived alone in a small white house at the end of Maple Drive. Her life seemed calm, ordinary, even. But what happened behind that calm exterior would soon shatter the illusion of safety this town had held for decades. Her students called her Miss H. She was gentle, patient, and deeply idealistic, the kind of teacher who believed every troubled teenager could turn their life around. On Fridays, she'd play classical music before class. During finals week, she'd bake cookies and leave them by the door with a note that read, "Good luck. You've got this." People trusted her. Maybe too much. It was the morning of November 3, 2021, when the first sign of trouble appeared at 8:15 a.m. Her neighbor, a retired nurse named Alice Monroe, noticed Melissa's Toyota Corolla still parked in the driveway. The engine was cold, frost beginning to form on the windshield. The curtains in the living room were open, and the porch light was still on, something Melissa never forgot to turn off. Alice thought it was odd, but not alarming. She assumed Melissa had taken a day off. But by 9 a.m., the school called Alice, asking if she'd seen her. Melissa hadn't shown up for class. No call, no text, no email. That was entirely unlike her. 9:23 a.m. Alice dialed 911 when officers arrived. They found the front door slightly ajar. There were no signs of forced entry. Inside, the air felt heavy, too quiet, as if the house itself was holding its breath. A kettle sat on the stove. Still warm. A cup of tea waited beside an open notebook. The clock on the wall had stopped at 7:41 a.m. Nothing looked stolen. Nothing looked ransacked, but in the living room, there was a single overturned chair, a cracked photo frame, and a faint streak of blood on the wooden floor. Melissa was gone. Detective Raymond Cole, a 20-year veteran of the Oregon State Police, was assigned to the case. He arrived that afternoon, his coat soaked with rain. His notebook already half full of observations. To the local paper. He later said, "The moment I stepped into that house, I knew this wasn't someone walking away from their life. Something violent happened there." The next 48 hours would turn Silver Pine into something it had never been before, a crime scene. Cole started with the basics. Who was Melissa Harding? What could have driven her to disappear? He interviewed her colleagues at the school. Every one of them said the same thing. Melissa was kind. Overly kind. She stayed late to help students with essays, brought food for those who couldn't afford lunch, and donated quietly to the scholarship fund every year. But one teacher, a history instructor named Tom Weaver, remembered something strange. About 2 weeks before she vanished, he saw Melissa crying in her car after school. When he asked if she was okay, she told him she was just tired. Another teacher recalled that Melissa had started locking her classroom door during lunch breaks, something she'd never done before. At home, police found her laptop open on her desk. The last document she'd typed was an unfinished letter, dated November 2 and It read, "I don't know how to make this stop. I tried to be kind. I tried to help. But now I feel like is everywhere I go." There was no signature, no name mentioned. Just that single, haunting paragraph. Detectives pulled her phone records next. Most calls were normal, friends, family, colleagues. But one number stood out. A private number, no caller ID, appearing several times a week, often after midnight. They also discovered several text messages sent from Melissa's phone the night before she disappeared, all to the same unknown. Contact point 8:21 p.m. Please stop. Calling. 8:25 p.m. You're scaring me. 8:43 p.m. If you care about me, let me go. Those were the last texts ever sent from her phone. By day 3, the media had caught wind of the story. A missing teacher in a small town. It was exactly the kind of mystery that made headlines. Local news vans parked outside the police station. Reporters knocked on neighbors' doors. Parents started keeping their kids home from school, and Silver Pine, once a postcard of American tranquility, began to unravel, Detective Cole told the press they were treating the case as a suspicious disappearance. But privately, he admitted what everyone feared. They were searching for a body. 2 nights later, a breakthrough came from a gas station just outside town. Security footage from November 2nd. At 9:47 p.m., showed Melissa's car pulling into the lot. She stepped out, wearing a grey coat and scarf, paid for gas in cash, and glanced over her shoulder several times. At first, nothing seemed unusual. But in the corner of the frame, half hidden in the shadows, a dark SUV appeared, headlights off, parked near the exit. The same SUV showed up again 15 minutes later. Passing by her street on Maple Drive, police traced the vehicle to a 2008 black Ford Explorer registered to Eric Dalton. Age 24, a former student of Melissa's, Dalton had graduated 6 years earlier. His record showed minor arrests, trespassing, public intoxication, but nothing violent. When officers brought him in for questioning, he seemed calm. Almost rehearsed. He said he had bumped into Melissa a few months ago at a coffee shop and that they'd been catching up. She was helping him get his life back on track. When asked where he was the night she disappeared, he said, "Home. Watching TV." No witnesses. No alibi. Detectives found dozens of text messages between him and Melissa over the past month. At first, they were polite. She offered advice, encouraged him to take community classes. But the tone shifted. Her replies became shorter. Then, they stopped altogether when police searched Dalton's apartment. They found something chilling. A wall covered with printed photographs of Melissa. Some were clearly taken from social media. Others, from real life. Zoomed in, grainy shots of her leaving the school. Standing in her garden. Shopping at the local store. In his trash bin, they found a crumpled note in her handwriting. "Eric, please don't come by anymore. I'm serious." They also found a burned USB drive. Forensics later recovered deleted files, video clips recorded through a car window. Following her home at night, when confronted, Dalton's confidence broke. He claimed he never hurt her, that she was like a friend. But when asked to explain the videos, he said only, "I just wanted to see her. She stopped talking to me. She shouldn't have done that." By then, the community's perception of Melissa had changed. She was no longer just a missing teacher. She was the victim of a nightmare that had been quietly unfolding for months outside her school. Students lit candles and left notes by her classroom door. One read, "You believed in me when no one else did." Another, "Come home. Miss H." But Melissa wouldn't be coming home, and deep in the forest beyond Silver Pine, something waited to be found, something that would finally reveal what really happened the night of November 2. Detective Raymond Cole spent the night reviewing every frame of the gas station footage. The black SUV, Eric Dalton's vehicle, appeared multiple times on the security feed, always following Melissa at a distance. Each time she looked over her shoulder, he remained out of focus, just a shadow. By morning, the detective had pieced together a chilling timeline. Dalton had been observing Melissa for weeks. Police believed he was aware of her routines, her stops, and even the days she left the classroom unlocked. Cole and his team began visiting neighbors. They asked if anyone had seen anything unusual in the days leading up to November 3rd. Most neighbors reported nothing, just the quiet, predictable life of Silver Pine. But one elderly man, Mr. Jenkins, living 3 houses down from Melissa, recalled seeing a dark figure near her driveway late in the evening. "I thought it was one of the kids. Maybe Eric," Jenkins said. "He was crouched by the car, just waiting. Didn't move for 10 minutes. Then he left." Detectives cross-referenced Dalton's phone location data. It matched Jenkins' observation perfectly. Dalton had been near Melissa's home the night before she vanished. The investigation expanded. Police searched Dalton's apartment thoroughly, discovering more evidence than they expected. Underneath a false bottom of his dresser, they found a small black notebook filled with notes about Melissa. Names, addresses, habits, times of arrival at school, even her favorite coffee order. In a section labeled Control, Dalton had meticulously written observations. She goes to the grocery store every Thursday at 6:15 p.m. Talks to neighbor Alice every morning. Waves first, then walks to car. Keeps the classroom locked for 30 minutes during lunch. It was a pattern of surveillance that painted a deeply disturbing picture. Forensic teams also recovered deleted files from his computer. Photos of Melissa at school, the grocery store, even on a morning jog. Each photo had been digitally labeled with the time and date. There were also short video clips, all of her, all alone. Detective Cole, this wasn't just obsession. This was planning. Weeks of it. And it escalated. Meanwhile, the community was growing restless. Parents kept their children home. Local businesses reported fewer customers. The story of Melissa Harding's disappearance had gone national, capturing the attention of true crime podcasts and local news networks. Students at Silverpine High were particularly affected. Her former student, Adam Keller, came forward to say he had noticed Melissa's anxiety in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. She seemed scared. "I didn't know why at the time," he said. "She'd leave the classroom abruptly if she got a phone call, sometimes pacing the hall. She wouldn't tell anyone what was wrong." The police had begun to consider the possibility that Dalton had approached Melissa in ways she could no longer safely manage. 2 weeks after her disappearance, a hiker named Samuel Reynolds discovered a small white scarf tangled in the underbrush of Silver Creek, about 5 miles outside town. It was recognized immediately as belonging to Melissa. Search and rescue teams scoured the area for days, combing the forest, the creek banks, and abandoned cabins. But there was no sign of Melissa, not a footprint, not a hair, not a personal item aside from the scarf. Then, one night in late November, Detective Cole received a tip from a passerby who had seen Dalton driving erratically near the outskirts of town. Cole personally followed up, but Dalton had an alibi, or at least what he claimed was one. "Dalton, I was home, alone, watching TV. I don't know what you're implying. I haven't touched her." Despite his calm demeanor, investigators noticed subtle signs of nervousness. His hands shook slightly, and he avoided eye contact. Investigators discovered a key detail when analyzing Melissa's school computer. An encrypted folder had been opened the night before she vanished. Inside were notes and a series of emails, mostly deleted, addressed to an anonymous person. The messages indicated that Melissa had felt threatened. "I'm scared to go home. He's outside my house again. If anything happens to me, tell someone. Please. I tried to help, but I can't manage this anymore." Police were now certain Melissa hadn't simply vanished voluntarily. Someone had coerced her, followed her, and ultimately harmed her. As winter approached, the case grew colder, literally. Snow began to cover the outskirts of town, hiding tracks and any trace of evidence. Yet Detective Cole refused to give up. He convened a meeting with the forensics team to go over the recovered video evidence again. That's when they noticed something previously overlooked. On the gas station footage from November 2nd, the black SUV was not alone. In one frame, just for a second, a reflection in the rearview mirror of the SUV showed a man approaching Melissa's car. His face was obscured by the shadows, but his hands were visible, gloved, tightly gripping something that resembled a small bag. Cole knew immediately. This was the moment the harassment escalated to violence. By early December, Dalton had been placed under surveillance. Every day, detectives recorded his movements, phone calls, and interactions. Yet he maintained his story. "Dalton, I didn't mean for anything to happen. She understood me. I swear." But the evidence was mounting. Police began to trace his activities on the night of November 2nd. Dalton had traveled to Silver Creek, the location where Melissa's scarf was found. GPS data showed he arrived at 10:12 p.m., left at 10:37 p.m., and returned near his apartment. That was the same night Melissa vanished. Meanwhile, in the quiet corners of Silver Pine, residents began whispering theories. Some suggested Melissa had fled town, maybe with someone she trusted. Others feared the worst, that a predator had taken her. Detective Cole and his team felt the pressure intensify. The media was relentless, the town frightened, and every lead seemed either contradictory or incomplete. Then, in mid-December, a breakthrough occurred. A hiker discovered a rusted metal box wedged beneath rocks near Silver Creek Bridge. Inside were items clearly belonging to Melissa: her school ID, a locket, and a small notebook. The notebook contained chilling entries from the days leading up to her disappearance. "He's been outside my house again. I can't sleep. I told him to leave, but he doesn't listen. I feel like I'm being followed, even during class. If I disappear, it's because I trusted the wrong person." These were the last known writings of Melissa Harding. Detective Raymond Cole stared at the notebook recovered near Silver Creek Bridge, his fingers brushing over the last line Melissa had written: "If I disappear, it's because I trusted the wrong person." The words echoed in his mind. They were a warning, a confession, A final clue, forensic teams immediately began processing the notebook for fingerprints, DNA, and any trace evidence. They found Dalton's prints on the back cover, confirmation that he had handled it after she vanished. Cole now had enough evidence to bring Dalton in for a formal interview. When Dalton arrived at the station, he was calm, almost eerily so. He sat across from Cole, hands folded, his gaze shifting only briefly to the wall clock. Detective Cole, Eric, we know you were following her. We have video, GPS data, and eyewitness accounts. We also recovered items belonging to Melissa near the creek. It's time to tell us the truth. Dalton leaned back, his face expressionless. Dalton, I didn't hurt her. I just wanted to talk. I just wanted her to understand me. Cole slammed a folder onto the table. Inside were photos of Dalton's apartment wall, dozens of Melissa's pictures, taken without her knowledge. Cole, do you call this talking? Dalton swallowed. His calm facade wavered. Dalton, I didn't mean for anything to happen. She was angry at me. I panicked. I just wanted to talk. I swear. Cole knew he was lying at the same time. The forensic team continued analyzing the rusted metal box. Inside, along with her locket and ID, were several handwritten pages. These pages contained fragments of Melissa's last lesson plans, notes about her students, and, strangely, an observation about Dalton. Eric seems troubled. I've tried to help, but I see he's slipping further. I'm afraid he may hurt someone, maybe himself, if I step back. Melissa had documented her fear. She had tried to protect both herself and Dalton. Meanwhile, the town of Silver Pine was growing restless. Every day brought new media coverage. National podcasts dissected every detail. Television crews parked outside the police station. And online forums buzzed with theories. Some locals wondered if Dalton had planned this meticulously. Others feared Melissa might have escaped on her own. Detectives decided to revisit the Silver Creek Bridge area. They wanted to see if there were additional traces of Melissa. Using search dogs and forensic specialists, they combed the area. In a shallow depression near the bank, they found a small piece of fabric, part of Melissa's grey coat, and underneath it, human remains. Forensic analysis confirmed. The remains were Melissa Harding. It was the confirmation Cole had dreaded. Melissa was dead. The investigation now shifted entirely toward building a case for murder. Dalton was taken into custody. His calm demeanor was gone. He was now visibly agitated. Dalton, I didn't mean to. She fell. I just panicked. I didn't know what else to do. Detective Cole pressed further. Cole, you followed her. You watched her. You saw her fear. How is that not intent? Dalton remained silent. In the weeks that followed, investigators reconstructed the events of November 2nd. Dalton had tracked Melissa from her school to her home. He confronted her in the evening, demanding she speak with him. When she refused, the confrontation escalated. He forced her into his SUV, drove her towards Silver Creek, and in the struggle, she was killed, though he maintained that it was accidental. The evidence told a different story. Dalton had stalked Melissa for weeks, gathering photographs, recording videos, and monitoring her movements. His intent, investigators concluded, was premeditated. The courtroom preparations began. Dalton's trial would be closely watched by the media and the community alike. Silver Pine felt like a town suspended in time, haunted by the absence of the woman who had once been its calm center. Meanwhile, families of Melissa's students held vigils. Teachers kept her classroom as it had been, with her books on the shelves and a plaque on the door. Her students left flowers and notes. You believed in me when no one else did. I'll never forget you. Miss H. Psychologists who examined Dalton concluded he exhibited obsessive tendencies and a growing fixation on Melissa. He rationalized his behavior as care, but the law interpreted it as dangerous premeditation. The prosecution framed the case around a timeline: surveillance footage, phone records, GPS tracking, witness statements, the rusted metal box, and Dalton's own admission of confrontation. Each piece of evidence added weight to the conclusion. Melissa Harding had been deliberately targeted by a man who had become dangerously obsessed with her. During the trial, former students and colleagues testified. One former student, Adam Keller, recounted how Melissa had warned him about boundaries, telling him that not every problem could be solved alone. Adam, she always cared, but she also knew when to protect herself. I wish she had the same chance. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Dalton's defense tried to portray the death as an accident, a panicked reaction during a confrontation. But the prosecution demonstrated the pattern of stalking, the intentional following, the prepared videos, and the evidence of surveillance. Outside the courtroom, Silver Pine remained tense. Residents debated safety, trust, and the limits of kindness. How could a town so small, so close-knit, produce such darkness? Finally, after deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Dalton was convicted of second-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to 35 years in prison. With no possibility of early release, Melissa Harding's family released a statement. Melissa was a bright, loving woman who devoted her life to helping others. Her loss leaves a hole in all our hearts. We hope her story serves as a reminder to stay vigilant and to protect those we love. Her classroom remains untouched, a silent tribute to a teacher whose life was cut tragically short. In Silver Pine. Every year, students leave flowers at the school. Teachers speak of her gently to new classes. Her name is still whispered in hallways, not as a warning, but as a symbol of integrity, compassion, and the cost of misplaced trust. Silver Pine had changed. The streets that once echoed with children's laughter now felt quieter. The Maple Drive neighborhood, where Melissa Harding had lived, seemed almost frozen in time, as if the town itself was holding its breath. People spoke in hushed tones about the tragedy, wary of letting too many words give life to what had happened. Every detail of Melissa's disappearance, every moment leading to her death, replayed in the minds of the residents. Like a haunting soundtrack, Detective Raymond Cole often walked through the quiet town at dusk. He remembered the first night Melissa was reported missing, the cold frost on her car windshield, the eerie silence inside her home, the single overturned chair. That memory stayed with him. He knew the case was more than a simple investigation. It was a story about trust, obsession, and the devastating consequences when one person misjudges another's intentions. By the time the trial began, national media had descended on Silver Pine. Cameras lined the courthouse steps. Reporters camped in front of the station, and online true crime forums dissected every piece of evidence. It was a media circus that the small town had never seen before, and the citizens of Silver Pine were caught in the whirlwind. Inside the courtroom, Dalton sat rigid, his expression a mix of defiance and unease. The prosecution presented meticulously gathered evidence, video surveillance showing him near Melissa's home, phone records tracking his obsessive communication, GPS data confirming his presence at the creek where her remains would later be discovered, and the haunting notes from the metal box recovered in the forest. Former students and colleagues took the stand. They recounted moments of her warmth, her dedication, and, more importantly, her vulnerability in the days before her disappearance. Adam Keller, the quiet senior who had noticed Melissa's anxiety, testified, "She cared about everyone, but I could tell she was scared. She tried to protect him, Eric, but she couldn't protect herself. She didn't deserve what happened." Another teacher, Tom Weaver, described seeing her cry in her car weeks before the disappearance. She never complained about the job, never asked for help. But that day, she seemed drained, frightened. "I didn't know it would lead to this." The jury listened to the evidence, watched the footage, and heard the chilling words of the notebook, Melissa's own voice, through her writing, revealing the fear she had felt and the sense of inevitability as she realized Dalton was beyond reason. "If I disappear, it's because I trusted the wrong person." Dalton's defense tried to argue that her death was accidental, the result of a struggle, a moment of panic. But the prosecution emphasized the pattern: surveillance, stalking, threats, and obsession. Each act, taken together, painted a picture of premeditated danger outside. The town held its breath. Silver Pine had not forgotten Melissa. Residents placed candles, flowers, and handwritten notes along Maple Drive and in front of the school. They spoke of her softly to new students, retelling her story not as a cautionary tale of fear, but as a reminder of the compassion and care she had given to so many. Finally, after days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Dalton was convicted of second-degree murder. The sentence: 35 years in prison without the possibility of early release. Relief, sorrow, and a lingering sense of disbelief swept through the town. For some, justice had been served. For others, the void Melissa left could never be filled. Psychologists and criminal behavior experts weighed in on the case. Dalton's actions were classified as obsessive, escalating to violence when confronted with rejection. The case became a reference point in studies on stalking, victim behavior, and the psychological consequences of obsession. Melissa's legacy, however, endured. Her classroom at Silver Pine High remained untouched, as if frozen in time. Her books sat neatly on shelves, her desk organized, her notes and inspirational quotes still visible. New students walked in, unaware of the tragedy, yet touched by the warmth that lingered in the room. Her colleagues spoke of her dedication, her kindness, and the profound impact she had on the lives she touched. Parents, students, and community members left flowers and notes each year, ensuring that her story would not be forgotten. In private interviews, Detective Cole reflected on the case. Melissa Harding trusted too much. She believed in the good of people, and that faith cost her life. But she also gave so much to her students, to her town, to everyone who needed her. That's how she should be remembered, not as a victim, but as a teacher, a mentor, and a human being who truly cared. Even as Silver Pines slowly returned to normal, the shadow of that November night lingered. The town learned lessons about vigilance, empathy, and the fragile boundary between trust and danger. And somewhere, in the quiet corridors of the high school she loved, Melissa's presence remained, in the stories shared, the students she inspired, and the indelible mark of a life tragically cut short. The case remains a somber reminder that even in the quietest towns, darkness can emerge unexpectedly. But Melissa's story is also a testament to courage, compassion, and the enduring power of human connection. Silver Pine remembers her. And the world, through true crime documentaries and national media, now knows her name. Melissa Harding, the silent teacher who gave everything and asked for nothing in return.